Hi. Welcome to this session of #Land of Tomorrow, the light of sovereignty, where we cover the second consideration of the birth of order in society.
Second consideration. The birth of order in society. Lost in the wilderness of North America, autonomy facing native forces was substituted for governmental authority, if possible, as native forces encouraged biological order. Tying debtors to their English origin and subsequently their debt as well, natives knew colonists were refugees and helped them to repel others to come. Colonists, though initially from Europe, bore generations that would never return to their origins and created a unique culture with its own destiny. With native and English biological differences, many colonists being sympathetic to native traders could only hope trade would continue. Speaking English colonists were tied to its empire, but learning the land and those occupying it, colonists invested in the land where despite biology countrymen had to work together. How could one not help a man in need, when by chance and circumstance another crossed one's path in distress? To avoid being cannon fodder between English and whatever force they were at odds, Presbyters set policy and procedure which theoretically minimized loss of life and property for settlers.
Far from English administration but the closest target of adverse administration, colonists were cannon fodder left to their own better judgment. Though anthropology was analyzed in Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species, 1859, long before the English study of anthropology produced more familiar relationships with natives. Through traffic, trade, and time, relationships with natives were more secure than with the crown. Stationed at the outskirts of Siberia manning posts the king forgot he had, we often found ourselves surrounded, outnumbered, and at the mercy of those thought to be enemies but were really friends. Sure, when men meet other men with weapons, there is a greater probability that pride may cause those lesser to fire first to avert impending danger, but that was less than thought. For over 250 years Europeans fought for control of the New World, where wars with natives left settlers as the closest representatives of nobility, however minimal. Just as the closer to the sun is, the more intense its rays will be, so too were colonists distant from the crown. Not that there weren't many more noble than others in America, but removed from the land of their origin, colonists had the land in common with natives that they didn't, with officers sent from England for them to follow.
As the population of English-speaking colonists who were born native to America that would never see England grew, those younger sought counsel from those older. Listening to story after story of Presbyters explain how Scotland still fought for independence from England, so too was the English-speaking native community, growing different and unique in culture, dialect, and understanding. More familiar with natives in closer proximity, so too did an appreciation from settlers in the wilderness of their protection from natives of French persuasion. Like long-horned elk with the wisdom to retreat from danger, Presbyters stood the tests of time and if anything encouraged others to be more like them. Sure, there was a time when all of us were more energetic, where reaching a certain age we have calmed down more, but apparently protected by those more senior, choosing loyalty to the crown or Presbyters often resulted in loyalty to the latter, as an only logical position to take in situations where authority of the crown and natives left settlers open to attack and an impending defeat. Not that colonists were cowards, but stuck between two kingdoms where they were physically far removed from one and biologically separated from the other in closer proximity, and trying to minimize damage, communication with both sides became necessary. Sure, from cowboy and Indian pictures we think all the natives were fighting English from all sides, but more often than not native forces attacking English settlers were more of a French persuasion than not. In that we mean that their firearms were French. Presbyters knew this, while those younger and more energetic may have, when they saw natives, considered them all as other and enemies.
Policy and procedure were mandated by Presbyters' democratically influenced body of representatives, as they proved a better reward in long life, dignity. There were what we call the 5 civilized tribes: Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminoles, whose relations with English established more trade than others. See, firearms and manumission were regulated by both sides, and just as English frontiersmen weren't the best of friends with natives of French persuasion, neither were those French with Spanish natives to the southwest. So, settling for peace, this new English community in America agreed to only interfere when natives of English persuasion needed assistance with those of French or Spanish. Tecumseh was of French persuasion, being from the Shawnee, which brings us back to Kentucky, where the bloodiest battlegrounds for natives lay. English had differences with other Europeans, but so too did natives with themselves, where we would be lost to try and decipher. See, regulating firearms and ammunition meant one could calculate native capability so as not be overthrown, but because we had to take their side and help English natives repel French ones. Natives had their own drama as well, which differentiated them in culture and tradition, where they couldn't get enough firearms, but we couldn't distribute more than we could subdue.
Between warring kingdoms' gun barrels, colonists could only look to those more senior for guidance, where policy and procedure left only natives of French persuasion as enemies. Sure, natives fought with natives as English fought with French, but far removed and never to return, the colonists knew not which way the tides of war might take, where without Presbyters' direct many more may have been lost. To avoid being cannon fodder between English and whatever force they were at odds with, Presbyters set policy and procedure which theoretically minimized loss of life and property for settlers. This growing community had to be addressed because though their parents may have been barbarian born on the soil, colonists inherited its destiny.
That concludes the information for this week. Meet us again at the same time on Thursday as we explore the third consideration in the nature of conscious light. Thank you for your time and consideration.